Good morning, everybody. December 23rd, 2 days until Christmas. Are you gathering for Christmas? Let me give you some tips and updates on what to do if you're planning on gathering. It's the same old story. I wasn't even going to do today's video because it's so what we've been hearing for the last 2 years, but here we go again. You know, numbers are really bad. New York State is hot, hot, hot up that Northeast. You know the whole story. That's all Delta in the Midwest and all that stuff. And so New York City has, 17,000 cases a day. Chicago is like 7,000 cases a day. Even Houston, 10 days ago we were 300 cases a day, and Houston is 4,000 cases a day. We are super hot. Remember, the southern states is all Omicron. The current band of red that you're seeing on all the maps, that's all Delta, because that's been happening for the last month and a half, 2 months. Well, actually, since the summer. So 3 months, that's all Delta. The real question is, and as I've been saying, the South is going to rise again with Omicron. And just look, Florida, hot. It is like a 550% increase in the last couple of weeks. So Florida is going to take off. Georgia, Atlanta's getting hot, and it's really bad, guys. All the major cities. So this wave might be the big one that hits us 1 million cases a day, because you got Atlanta lighting up, LA is up to 4,000 cases a day, Phoenix is lighting up, Chicago's on fire, and we know about New York City. So all the major cities in the United States are getting hit at the same time, which we've never seen happen before. Now the question is going to be, is Omicron going to show up, which I think it will, show up in like the Northwest, because they just finished their Delta surge. So you're talking about Oregon, Washington, Upper Idaho, Montana, that area, and go back through the Rocky Mountains again down to California, which I think it will, because what was I going to say? Oh, Omicron is in all 50 states. That's what I was going to say. Omicron is now in all 50 states. Europe is still on fire. I know that the South African numbers are coming down, but they're still doing 20,000 cases a day in South Africa. It's still like real high, guys. Like, don't be like, see, Omicron's already perked out in South Africa. No, it has not. That's the same thing people were saying this summer about Delta in the UK. And I was like, UK still has like 25,000 cases a day. So what? They came down from 40. Now look at them. There are 100,000 cases a day in UK, more cases than ever. Yeah, but what about hospitalizations, Dr. V? Relatively, fewer hospitalizations than this time last year, but that's because vaccines. We now have vaccines. It's not because, you can't sit there and say Omicron is less deadly or milder. You don't know that yet. It could be a result of the vaccinations, right? So, but more people vaccinated are put in hospitals. Well, that's because there's more people vaccinated. If you have a population that has more of one quality, you're going to get a higher percentage of people with that quality. So, duh. Anyway, I'll do more about that, because those simple little sampling pools and statistics seem to throw people off. I don't, understand. Anyway, so about Christmas. The other big news is Pfizer's Paxlovid has been approved. That's the pill to treat once you come down with COVID. If you take it within the first 3 days of symptoms, there's 89% reduction in hospitalization and death. And if you take it within 5 days, it's 88%. So it's pretty good. And that's the onset of symptoms, not positive tests. Onset of symptoms, when you start feeling bad, because usually people still wait a couple of days. So, and you have to get it through a doctor, prescription, and it won't be approved until January, which means it won't be available until January, which means we will be in the peak of this Omicron, and there won't be enough to go around. I'm telling y'all. I mean, they're talking about maybe 500,000 doses in January, for all of January, and you're talking about possibly 1 million cases a day here in the next couple of weeks. There's not going to be enough doses. And, it might go the way of Tamiflu, dude. Like, I just don't think Tamiflu is that great, the medicine for influenza. Could be. I don't know. And maybe that once they disperse it into larger populations, the effectiveness goes down, kind of like what happened with the Merck pill. And who knows about new variants? Speaking of which, the monoclonal antibodies, the latest data on it is it's not very effective. They're not very effective against Omicron. So, man, but booster shot seems to be what's needed. And I had my booster shot 3 weeks ago, so I'm in the peak of protection right now. I am in the peak of protection. So what are you going to do if you're planning on a gathering for the holidays? Christmas is 2 days away. Dr. Fauci came out pretty strongly this week and said, if they're not vaccinated, this would be a good time to not invite them to the gathering. And I really agree with that. I mean, I would not gather with anybody who's not vaccinated, especially in a state that's ramping up hot like Houston is, a city. Houston, New York City, Chicago. You're just putting yourself at too much risk. There's too many unknowns out there. And it's going to be really interesting to see what's going to happen with long COVID due to Omicron. We still don't know about that. We know long COVID with Delta is much worse than long COVID with wild type, and it was already pretty bad with wild type. So, we haven't even really mentioned long COVID, in a long time, And the truth of the matter is, like, Omicron might have worse lingering symptoms. It might not. I don't know. So I think if everybody's fully vaccinated and you get a rapid test the day of. Why the day of? Why not 2 days before? It's the day of. I'll explain that in a second. And those rapid tests, you can get them at CVS, Walgreens. Just go to cvs.com or walgreens.com. You type in your zip code, and they'll show you which stores have tests near you. And you're going to need several, so buy as many as you can. Binax is 2 tests for $25, which I think is pretty cheap, $12.50. 15-minute results. Swab your nose, and get results in 15 minutes that are about 75 to 80% accurate. Not 100%. But pretty good when you combine that with your vaccination status. So everybody needs to get tested the day of gathering and be vaccinated. That's what I would do. And if you're doing that, then I think you're pretty safe. You can hug. You don't have to wear masks unless you really want to wear a mask. You could probably be indoors. Outdoors would be better, but if you're in a cold climate, you can be indoors. And if someone's particularly vulnerable, go ahead and wear a mask if you want to. I don't think you have to if you do those 2 things. It's risk reduction, basically. So yes, it's all the common sense stuff that they've been telling you. Now, why the day of? Well, if you go back and remember when the pandemic first started and we were learning about SARS CoV-2, there was this whole new thing called asymptomatic spread. People were spreading the virus without having signs and symptoms. And the reason why was because the incubation period of SARS CoV-2 was anywhere from 7 to 14 days. Who remembers initially it was 14 days of isolation. If you came down with COVID, you had to, or you were exposed, you needed to be isolated for 14 days. And that's the reason, because the scientists discovered that it was taking 10, 14 days to replicate, to incubate. And then that came down to about 10, and then just to try to get people back to work or to actually isolate, they dropped it to 7 days. And that seemed to be good enough to minimize extra spread. And then Delta hit. Delta came, and one of the things that made Delta more what is the word I'm looking for? More competitive than Alpha or any of the other variants is because it had a 4-day incubation period. So now it went from 10 to 14 days down to 4-day incubation period. Well, Omicron appears to have about a 2-day incubation period. 2 days. And not enough is said about this in the news. But if you know that Omicron is in your nose for 2 days, you need to test the day of. You need to test the day of. Because you're more likely to pick it up. You're more likely to pick it up. If the incubation period was 14 days, there might not be enough virus to show up on the test. You might have it, but there's not enough of it to turn the test positive. Who understands what I'm trying to say? But Omicron is replicating so fast that its incubation is 2 days. That means you'll pick it up faster because you're more likely to pick it up faster. Turn the test positive. So the day before, day of, make sure everybody's vaccinated, and I think we'll be fine. If you're in a hot spot, New York City, you might want to not gather at all. You might not want to gather at all, but that's, you know, that's called American freedom. It's called choice. All right, stay safe, and maybe I'll come back and do a video over the holidays. I think we really need it over these next holidays. Leave a comment. Let me know if these are even helpful for you. Sometimes people are really negative trolls on my page, and they're like, "This is common sense," or "He doesn't know what he's talking about," or "He's rambling," or blah blah blah, or "He's picking his nose," you know, like, and, you know, like I'm home alone. I don't know what to tell you. All right, love y'all. Be safe. Talk to you later. Bye.